What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 96 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined, as always, by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Max Wright.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Ahoy, ahoy, Max. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back. 96. That's 4 episodes left of the big 100. And if it all works out correctly, that'll be near my 30th birthday. What the universe
What a time.
is colliding, man.
What a time to be alive. Yeah,
I
and,
know.
I don't want to... I won't spoil anything for the folks, but we're planning some stuff for episode 100. And if it all comes together, I
Ooh.
think it's going to be pretty fun. So everybody get hyped for that one. Just a few short weeks away. And then don't forget, our anniversary is coming up in August. And you know what that means. New stuff always happens. We'll have to see.
Wait, how does that work out? Oh yeah, no, that does work out. I've just done the maths. Yeah, that's right. That is correct. For anyone
got
else
it.
who needs to do the maths, just pause the podcast, do the maths, and you'll be where I am.
Pull over right now.
Yeah,
You're
pull
listening,
over.
just pull over.
You're gonna have to do a lot of counting on your fingers, and like you can't do that while you're driving. It's not
You got to take
safe.
your shoes off so you can use your toes too.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't use your roadside abacus that's in the in the emergency section in the glove box.
Is that a British thing?
Yeah, we always need the
Is that required when you get pulled
you
over?
have to have the
Cops are
emergency
like
abacus.
license, registration, abacus.
Yeah, because then you're like, okay, how much is this fine going to be? It's all in pounds and shillings and threepence. So you have to get the abacus out
Yeah.
to work it all out. Luckily we don't have to do the tax on that like you guys would. That's where you need like the supreme tax abacus. But
Sure.
we phased that out. So.
Yeah, so is that what you guys call calculators? Is that
Yes.
is that what I'm learning today? The supreme abacus.
Yeah. It does. You just still numbers and computers, isn't it? They're in Minecraft now, so that's fun.
That is fun indeed. Speaking of fun, we got a fun episode ahead of us today because, of course, in the kind of afterglow of Summer Game, not a ton of news going on. So we got a ton of questions from you, the audience. We are going to do a little check-in on our 2023 predictions now that Summer Games Fest is over, and there are some updates to some of those points, just like we promised. So we got a lot to jump into today, and I want to kick things off with a question from one Left Eye Lazy from the Discord, who wrote in and said, "It's summer. How do your gaming habits change in the summer? More Switch/multiplayer as you spend more time outside with family? The sun is evil, so inside with the AC on blast on console?"
This is a good question because when I think about like summers previously, I feel like that's when my lull happens. That's when because it's nicer outdoors, I'll get out more. I'll be sort of, seeing friends more. I'll be going out walking or hiking or whatever, like doing stuff like that. And then I feel like the Switch adverts don't really tell the true story of, I don't often rock up at my destination, get my Switch out and start playing Zelda like on the trails, or top of a big hill or something like that. But I do feel like there is depends on what's out as well. Like last year, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak came out sort of around summertime, and I'm pretty sure Monster Hunter Rise in 2020, whenever that came out. I think it was 2021.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, that came out around the summertime, and I was spending a ton of time just like fans on in my friend's living room, local co-op playing online together. Whereas now, I think even though the Zelda's out and I should be dedicating a lot of time to that, I really just like it's taking a back seat to just sort of getting out there, achieving some other goals, trying to sort of be one with nature. Winter's when I sort of like lock myself away. And I'm sure when I get back into Zelda, if I picked my Switch up again right now, I probably wouldn't want to go out for the next few weeks. So it's probably good that I do go out and get my steps in. What about you, Pete? How do you play?
I feel like it definitely depends year to year a little bit, but I definitely have had a good amount of those like Switch commercial like classic moments. Like I talked about it a couple of weeks ago on Nintendo Noise, I think, where like that was one of the first like nice park days I spent this year. Was like I met up with a couple of my friends who live in the city, and we went to this park in West Philly, and we sat and played Zelda until our Switches died. And went back to our friend's apartment that was nearby so we could charge up and keep going.
And it was the best 2 hours of your life.
It was pretty good, it's pretty good. I was fully charged, so I got closer to that 3-hour mark.
Oh yeah,
so
wow.
not too bad. So I definitely think it depends kind of on what the games are, but like I definitely have a lot of like vivid memories of playing games in the summer, depending on like which phase of my life we're talking about, right? Because obviously when you're a kid, right, and it's summer vacation, there's a ton of extra time to play games. So like even when I like as I've aged and like your relationship with summer changes, I do have a lot of memories of like even if I'm going out during the day and going to concerts or camping or whatever, right? That like at night there would be a lot of extra gaming. It would be a
Mhm.
lot of like staying up super late, with the buddies playing, Overwatch or League of Legends or whatever, right? And like burning the midnight oil because nobody had to go anywhere the next day, or oh,
Yeah.
we all got to go to work, but we're going to work at like 5 o'clock, right, to go work at a restaurant or whatever, right? So we can sleep until noon or sleep until 2 or some shit like that.
I'm
Um,
trying to think what I was doing in 2016 when Overwatch came out that I'm pretty sure I was already sadly doing, like, full-time work then, so maybe I don't think I coulda got away with a late night Overwatch session then.
yeah, I that was the period where I was freelancing and part-time, so I would like
Ah,
I
yeah.
would have days where I would be scheduled to work and it would be like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
stayed up until 6 a.m. playing Overwatch. I'm not gonna come in today. I'll see you tomorrow." Like, whatever, and I was flexible enough that I could get away with it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think of a lot of that stuff, like a lot of multiplayer, a lot of late night sessions, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But I feel like now it definitely it it's interesting because I feel like summer is often a time where there is kind of a lull. It's one of the
Yeah.
last like points in the calendar where there is kind of that lull for new releases. And like not always, right? Like there's plenty of examples of big games that do come out in the summer.
2019 was, like, every single month the Switch had a new game come out, whether it was Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, Astral Chain, Luigi's Mansion 3, like, all of these games that were coming out from, like, June, July, August, September, and it was
Yeah.
just carried on going, and I was, like, really trying to keep up with all of that stuff.
And it's like we're seeing that this year again, right? Where it's like, Tears of the Kingdom was more of a spring game, but people are going to be playing that through the summer. Final
Yeah.
Fantasy's out this
Yeah.
week. We've got Diablo just came out, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of games this year that are hitting around that kind of early summertime. And like I think even like going as far back as the PS3, The Last of Us, I'm pretty sure originally released during E3 week. So it's certainly not unheard of, but
Mhm.
I think about like last year and the last couple of years, like while there's been the lockdown and like we've had less ability to enjoy the summer like you know uh fully and like without reservation. So and there were some slow summers because a lot of games are getting delayed and people are adapting to work from home and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
like I spent a lot of time playing retro games the last couple summers. Like I replayed Dragon Age Origins last summer. I played Tony Hawk's Underground, I
Yeah.
think, in the summer of last year, and like a lot of that kind of stuff. So I feel like that's also a fun thing, is like kind of taking advantage of when there are those days where it's like the sun's evil. I don't want to go outside. It's a heat wave. It's too much to go out and enjoy
Yeah.
the weather. It is nice to have those days where you kick it in the living room, full AC on blast, and
Don't know what that feels like. Don't have
crush
any
through the
AC, I'm afraid.
backlog.
You said 2 letters, earlier that made me realize why there were big chunks of the summer I do remember playing games, and it's E3. I always used to, from, like, 2012 till, like, 2019, I'd book a week off for E3, and I
Hmm.
would either stay at a friend's house or we would, stay up till 3 a.m. when the things ended, go home and get some sleep or play some games, and that whole week, I was catching up on games. We played a lot of Splatoon, we played a lot of Monster Hunter, we played some Overwatch on the Switch, like, we would always be playing something, or I would personally be playing something on the 3DS or on the Switch or whatever. I'd take my PS4 round, my PS4, my PC round, sorry, and we would like set up and like LAN and stuff. And like that was
Yeah.
actually a big week of gaming during the summer. So to not have E3 the last couple of years, and like you say, 2020, I played tons of games through the summer purely because we couldn't go out. Animal Crossing came out and I played like 150 hours of that. And then I was like,
Oh
bang,
yeah, I played that for the
let's
whole summer.
yeah, I was like, "Let's catch up on all the games that I didn't play last year." So I played, like, Sekiro and Jedi Survivor and Control, all these games that, like, now I hold in quite high regard because I had the time to really enjoy them during,
Yeah.
summer without distractions, whereas, like I say, Zelda, because 'cause I've had all these things going on. I was at a festival last week and I'm out every day trying to sort of get my steps up because I'm in competition. I'm trying to lose some weight. All of these things that are sort of getting in the way. Maybe I'm not enjoying Zelda to its fullest because of that. And I think maybe if I just don't worry about it and pick it up in the autumn again, then I'll probably have a much better time and I feel less guilty maybe about
Yeah.
spending my time playing the game. So yeah, I think it has changed as I've gotten older, like you say, but I don't think it's necessarily just the age thing. I think it's just circumstance of you know COVID and the things I'm currently trying to do, that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
necessarily mean 'cause I'm nearly 30 that that's the case, you know?
Yeah, and it's like I think it's but that probably is like a factor, right? In the
Mhm,
fact that like you don't have the ability to like, you don't have like several weeks where you have no responsibility except for maybe like
mhm.
a part-time job or something, right? Which is
Yeah.
like that obviously changes things. But yeah, I think for me, how much I'm gaming and the ways I am in the summer is like very tied to like what the game of the moment is and kind of what my relationship to it is at that time. Because there have been definitely summers where it's like it's all about the multiplayer thing, but like for
Mhm.
me this summer it's like it's Zelda. Zelda's the wave, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been playing that at any given opportunity. And now it's going to be I think probably the juggle of like I'm going to start Final Fantasy, I'm going to keep playing Zelda cuz I'm about to finish my last mm, I have 2 more major story beats before
Okay.
I'm teed up to finish the game, and I don't intend on rolling credits right away. My goal is, I think, to tee that up and then keep doing side quests, like,
That's
you
my
know,
plan too, yeah.
on the side, and then kinda wrap it up when I feel like I'm kind of done, when I don't wanna do anything else, that's
Mhm.
when I'll go roll credits on it, but I also am, like, at the point where I do kind of feel that itch of like, "Ooh, Final Fantasy's coming." Like, I'm excited to try something new and,
Yeah.
like, I've played over 100 hours of Tears of the Kingdom since it
Oh,
came
wow,
out. It's
really?
been the only thing I've played,
Yeah.
since it dropped, and I've been pretty obsessed with it. I guess with the odd Marvel Snap match here or
Of
there.
course, yeah, I still play a lot of this is actually the first so I was thinking about, like, because my phone broke, like, when I was at a festival, so I'm using, like, the most basic entry-level Samsung phone from last year
Mhm.
that we happen to have at work, and it's basically, it's too crap to play games on, so I'm really not playing any Marvel Snap at the moment, but also this is the first summer it's not just because of the phone, but it's the first summer I'm not gonna be playing Pokemon Go obsessively
Oh, okay.
since, like, 2018, not just because of the phone thing, but I also I just think the game's sort of becoming a bit stale, and I think Niantic are making some odd choices, and, I think that's probably a good reason why I'm not playing a ton of that game at the moment, and that it was a big summer game for me, as I would cool, it's let's go out and let's walk and play Pokemon Go,
And
or
there
get
was
together
doing
with some
events and
friends.
everything.
Yeah, exactly, like, there was, like, the big, like, Go Fest, whatever it was, where, like, me and my friend would, like, get together and we'd spend, like, just 12 solid hours getting every Pokemon, finishing every quest, like, finding loads of shinies, like, all around his town, my town, and the next day we'd go somewhere else and we'd do, like, raids and stuff, and that's always been good, but because neither of us are really that bothered by Pokemon Go at the moment, that's also been a big sort of, like, where I don't feel like I'm playing games. When I'm out walking, I'm generally just, like, listening to something and just, like, actually being outdoors instead of playing Pokemon Go, which it's not a bad or a good thing necessarily, it's just different. I'm hoping that the Monster Hunter game they bring out in September of all times. Like, why would you bring out your big outdoor game in September instead of bringing it out in time for summer? I know there's a closed beta going on. I would have liked to go into that, but oh well. But I think that might be sort of the next thing that maybe gets me outside to play some more games. I think is that I definitely don't like playing games outside, like sitting down to play games. I'd rather be out sort of out and about, moving around. Um,
That was such a magical summer, the year where, like, Pokemon Go came out. That was, like, the most,
that never ended for me, Pete. Never ended for me.
I wish I hadn't fallen off of it like that because like, I feel like the moment kind of passed
Oh
and,
man.
like, I, uh, I would have, like, spurts with it, like, once or twice after that, but at that initial wave was, like, was like, "Man, like, maybe humanity's gonna be okay," you know? Like
It just kept going. Like 2018, I sort of didn't play through 2017, and 2018 I picked it back up and I started getting into raiding and I met some friends and then we became a big group and then we were going out all the time, like all the time every single day, every weekend. We'd combine it with pub trips. We'd be like doing raid days and we'd go and get
yeah,
drunk or we'd go
yeah.
to the park and like the community grew. There's a huge community in my local area. We would go to different places. We travel around the sort of our local areas playing the game and like it was big, it never ended for me. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's only the last, like, couple of years where a few people moved away, a few people just didn't wanna play anymore, and I don't disagree with them for stopping playing basically, but,
Yeah.
yeah, like, that feeling has never really gone away from me of that, like, you'd see people out and about like, "Oh, you're at a raid," or you'd meet people at raids, or, you'd bump into someone in a new town, and you'd be like, "Oh, we're here every now and again, like, is there a raid group we can join?" And then there's a whole load of new people to make friends with, and you send gifts every day, and it sort of feels like a good community. And yeah, that never went away for me. So that's a game I've definitely sort of missed. I think this summer, but
Sure.
I've missed what it was, not what it is now. Essentially,
Yeah, I hear you there. So, we're gonna get into some more questions from the folks at home in just a minute, but I did want to do a little check in on our 2023 predictions because, of course, in the episode prior to Summer Games Fest, we talked about wanting to check in on these once everything at SGF had kind of settled and we'd see how we're doing, how everybody's scores are right now, which predictions we think are likely to happen at this point, which ones are we pretty confident won't happen. Unfortunately, I guess we're keeping the trend where we only check in on this when there's only two of us, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's better that way. It's better because then we get to dig on whoever's not here. But I
That's
do.
true.
I'm looking at this list. I don't want to jump in too quickly, but you've given yourself a green that I feel like we have as a collective, apart from you, agreed, as in me and Steve, agreed that I don't think you deserve this green.
No, see, here's the thing, Max. You said that, and you can go back and listen to the episode where we talked about it, and I covered this, right? Like I absolutely have these points. Um, so and we'll jump right into it here because where we're at right now, right? If you didn't check it out, you want to go listen for yourself. Episode 73 of the podcast is where we initially worked on these predictions, right? So to give you guys an idea, just to catch you up on the rules, right? What we ended up with here was that each of us were going to do 10 predictions worth 1 point each. We would have one risky pick, which is worth 2 points. And basically, the way the risky picks work is that everyone has to agree that the pick is risky enough for it to be warranted as a risky pick. And if you lose, nothing happens. If you get it, you get double points. So nice little bonus there. We decided we would do no half picks this year and that all of our picks would have to be very concrete. They would have to be things that you could very easily say happened or didn't happen, right?
Mhm.
And it was also supposed to not be anything obvious, so nothing that like we had prior knowledge about, not anything that
Yeah.
there was significant reason to believe we would be able to take to the bank. And then we would have a impartial judge later in the year to go through the points and name our winner. So, which of course will be me because I'm killing it. So,
Mm,
yeah, no, I'm doing great. I'm doing great, Max.
no.
So here's where we're at right now. We've got our list of 11 picks each. We'll go through them. We'll check in on them real quick, and we'll see where we're at so far. So right now, and if you're watching over on YouTube, I do have the list pulled up, and we've got like a slight color coding. Green means you've already won your point. Red means that you've lost your point, and yellow means that probably not going to happen, but it hasn't been decided yet, right? So we'll check in on these. So for our first round, my first prediction was Nintendo will not release next gen hardware. Max said Elden Ring's expansion will be released by the end of June 2023, and Steve said that Nintendo will not reveal a new Switch. So right now, Max, that's an L for you. So we're
Mhm.
gonna update that one. I am pretty sure I'm gonna get my point here, and Steve will get his point here. We both have them as yellow because these ones I think are pretty pretty likely to happen, right? They're pretty solid at this point. That Nintendo will not have next gen hardware or a new Switch revealed this year. So we'll see how that one plays out, but I think you can probably take Steve and I getting a point each there to the bank. For our second round, I said that Microsoft will successfully acquire Activision Blizzard and the deal will close. You said that Tears of the Kingdom will feature Princess Zelda as a playable character. And then Steve said that Link will die in Tears of the Kingdom. Both of you are out on that one. And for
Mhm.
me, it's still pretty up in the air. I think what's going to happen with mine. We did get an update on this story this past week where um, the FTC, which is the United States Federal Trade Commission, has blocked Microsoft from buying Activision, at least for now, after a judge granted a temporary restraining order.
Yeah,
So
they
essentially,
thought it was too close. They thought that you were getting too many points, so
yeah, they wanted to
they
make sure that the prediction stayed
yeah,
interesting for this part of the year, of course, which I respect. We appreciate this judge, longtime listener of the show, apparently.
he
So
is, yeah.
thank you so much. But the long and short of it, just to kind of give you an update on what's going on there, is that right now, the court has prevented Microsoft from being able to complete its acquisition until it can consider a preliminary injunction requested by the US FTC, according to a report from The Verge. Right. So basically, what that means is the FTC is attempting to stop Microsoft from being able to finalize the deadline. I'm sorry, to finalize the deal before the deadline that's currently set of July 18th. And basically, why that date is important is because under the current deal, if Microsoft isn't able to close the acquisition by the 18th, they could potentially have to pay Activision Blizzard $3 billion for the deal not going through on the initial agreed upon timeline. And that wouldn't necessarily mean that the deal was definitely dead, but it would cost Microsoft quite a bit of extra money. So obviously that's something that they're trying to avoid, right? And Microsoft publicly has said that they're not upset about this. That actually they are happy that this will accelerate the legal process. Right? They had Brad Smith, who is the president of Microsoft, said, "We welcome the opportunity to present our case in federal court. We believe accelerating the legal process in the U.S. will ultimately bring more choice and competition to the market." Of course, they're not going to publicly state that they're concerned about anything, but they're projecting an air of confidence that this is ultimately a fine move for them. And basically, to give you an idea of what this means in practice, is that basically they're not going to be able to complete the acquisition on the initial timeline that was discussed, right? So they won't close it in June. But basically now there's a bunch of dates that are set based on this. So Microsoft and Activision needed to submit their response to the injunction on June 16th. And the FTC has until, as of this recording, tomorrow to respond to that. And then there will be a hearing based on that preliminary injunction on June 22nd and 23rd. And that is kind of when we'll get our next piece of news here. But based on that timeline, it seems very unlikely that Microsoft will be able to close the deal in June. But they have until July 18th before anything is seriously in jeopardy. So
Yeah.
we should have an update next week. But right now, my point's very much in jeopardy. We'll see what happens.
I think so too. But it's exciting. There's always things going on with this Microsoft merger, and it's kept us in content. It's kept the content mills going for us for a little while, so that's good.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, and ultimately, I do still think it will close. I think the question is, does it close this year, or is
Yeah.
there enough legal back and forth to push that timeline out even further?
Yeah.
But we'll see, right? Because I mean, if they do hit that point where they have to pay that $3 billion, do they decide to cut their losses and move on? Who's to say? But we'll have some updates there probably by next week. So keep it tuned. So number three, I predicted that Ubisoft would be acquired or liquidated. You predicted that a Bloodborne game would be revealed this year and that it would not be a straight port of the original Bloodborne. And Steve said that Game Freak will apologize for the bugs and issues in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and will not release a new Pokemon in 2023. So, I mean, Steve's definitely not getting that one, right?
Yeah, I'm not feeling great about mine. I'm not feeling great about yours either. This looks like a pretty red line personally. So
Yeah, I think both
considering Ubisoft have come around recently. Wait, Ubisoft. Considering Ubisoft have come along recently with just like a stack of new stuff that people
yeah.
are pretty jazzed about. Is like even a game that they've a couple of games they've put out. That I'm jazzed about. Which considering how I'm pretty Ubisoft agnostic, seems pretty cool.
Yeah, between Prince of Persia and Outlaws, they showed off 2 new games that I
Yeah,
think are really exciting. They're showing well, and I
even
think
Assassin's
they're
Creed Mirage.
yeah,
As
yeah,
someone
that's
who
true.
didn't play the early Assassin's Creeds but did enjoy Origins, I'm like, yeah, this would get me to play the sort of the older style of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lot of folks, whether you're a classic fan or not, who are, like, attracted by the idea of it being, like, a shorter,
Yeah,
story-driven 15, 20-hour game. We don't really get that kinda game anymore, and I
yeah,
think we're overdue for that style of game to come back.
absolutely.
So, yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't think either of us are gonna get that one either. So number 4, I predicted that Armored Core 6 would be delayed out of 2023. I
We've
don't
seen the game
that's not
now.
happening.
We've
That
seen
game
the
is
game now.
it is imminent. Yeah, so I don't think that's happening. And you predicted that Armored Core 6 will be the best-selling game in the franchise within the first week of its publication. by an official source or a reputable analyst.
I feel like that's been twisted a little bit, and that I said it'll be like you'll have like the best first week of. Oh no,
It's the same
mm,
thing. You said it would be the
yeah,
best
okay.
selling game in the franchise within the first. That's what you said.
Pretty sure I specified. I'll listen back at some
You
point,
go
but
listen
that's
back if you
fine.
want. You
Okay,
signed off
alright.
on this list, Matt.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
made
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
together.
I remember.
You love to change the rules now,
I ain't changing new rules.
We'll see. We'll see when we get to my risky pick.
We will
A
see.
Sony-owned studio, and this was Steve's. A Sony-owned studio will release an original game day and date on PlayStation and another platform. Cannot be something like MLB The Show, but something like Marvel's Spider-Man would count. Not gonna happen.
No.
Definitely not gonna happen.
No, I think that yeah, that would be I mean, even like Destiny, like oh sorry, Bungie, sorry. Even if they did like oh god, what is that game called? Marathon. If they did Marathon and it was on another system, that would count, but I don't think we're getting Marathon this year,
No,
like release,
no.
so no.
Yeah, I think if he had wanted to like couch it that way, I think I could see that happening. But yeah, he was particular in this, and it's like, yeah, no,
Mhm.
no, no, that one doesn't count. Come on, buddy.
Mhm.
But he did get points in round 5, in one of the most insane predictions to come true in the history of the
Oh
show.
yeah.
Number 5, I said Bungie's first new project under PlayStation revealed, and it is unrelated to Destiny. I was correct about that. You predicted that Forspoken's Metacritic score would be below 80. You were correct about that. And
Of
Steve
course.
predicted that Bungie will announce a new game in the Marathon franchise, the first in 23 years. The most
Now,
insane thing he could have
it
predicted.
blew my mind, and I came back from a small hiatus from anything related to the show to go into Discord and call Steve out and just tell him to fuck off because there's no way he could have got this. Then Asobi, like a week later, came out and said that there was some foul play possibly that Steve might have sort of seen a rumor, and I'm pretty sure the rumor had come up before, but I still think it's a crazy guess. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
even with a
if we can find that proof, it was in the rules. So, I mean, if Asobi wants to, because like I said, we're gonna have a point where there's judges. Maybe we bring Asobi onto the judge team. We have Zayd and Asobi go in and make that call. Because if we find proof that that was information Steve could have found out prior, that's breaking our rules, and that would be
Detective Asobi, break it down into 3 manageable chunks for us, for how
yeah,
we can kick Steve out. But
yeah, yeah.
also save some energy for kicking Pete out as well later.
No, 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 don't do that. You don't want to do that. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, guys. Two-time champion. You want to hit yourself to the right wagon, right? You want to hit yourself to the winner, and you want to be on the team that wins number 3. Here we go. We're gonna end up with. I think the goal here is 6 franchise wins, like the Bulls. We want to create a legacy here. Oh wait, you're muted. How are you muted? What'd you do? Did you mute yourself? I thought it was on
I
my
pressed
end.
the mute button.
Okay,
No, I
okay.
pressed the mute
I
button.
was like, oh,
I'm
all my
going
things are
to
fine.
I'm going to make a trophy. I'm gonna buy a trophy with my own money, put my own name on it, and then parade it around like
See,
just
here's
like
the
you
thing.
have.
You say that every time. I didn't
Yeah?
do that. This was the
Yeah?
organization created this
How do
this
you have
product
a trophy in your hand that has your name on it
because
3
the
times?
the organization needed a trophy.
Who's the head of the organization?
I'm one
Me?
of 2 heads of the organization.
Uh-huh,
I don't know what you
interesting.
want me to tell you. Just because
Foul play.
I own the company and I happen to win the event that we
Uh-huh.
hold, you can't hold me accountable for that.
The call's coming from inside the house, Pete.
Here's the thing, man.
Get me a
I
whistle.
told you. You wanna create a competition and win it 2 years in a row, then you can name whatever you want after yourself. That's the rules.
I don't know jack shit about business. This feels like insider trading, I think. I've no idea.
I'm
But,
not sure how insider trading works, but this sounds
this
like it.
sounds like it. This
I
sounds as
think that's
close
what
to
it
it as I
is.
think it could be.
All right, so number 6, for me was that Persona 6 will be announced. I'm gonna call that one an
Yeah,
L.
everything they've done is leaked so
And
far this year,
they
so
announced everything they could besides that, right? A
yeah,
new
yeah.
Persona 3 remake, Persona 5 Tactica, and then the new game from the team that were the architects of P3 through 5. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just bad luck on that one.
Sorry, mate. At
In
least you can finish
retrospect
Persona 5 now.
in retrospect, that probably should have been my prediction was the new IP from that new team, but I thought
Mhm.
that would take a lot longer. I don't know, they've been working on it for a couple years at this point, but
There's a theme of you being wrong, so
Oh, yeah, there's a theme. I'm sorry. How many points do you have right now on this? It's, 1, right? Oh, 2. Yeah, you got 2 whole
2,
points. Good for you.
and you have 1
No, and I have
uncontested point.
3. I
You
have
have 1
3, Matt.
uncontested point. You have 1 uncontested
No, that's
point.
not how that works. So number 6, you said that Konami announces at least 1 new game for an from an existing franchise with a third-party developer. So close.
Still could
So
happen.
close, bud.
Still could happen, mate.
Could
Still could
happen.
happen. Because if that Castlevania thing comes out later in the year and it's not by an in-house Konami team, that counts. You know,
Yep.
we just have
Yep.
to patiently wait. I was very close with Metal Gear Solid,
The
the
Metal
remake
Gear
was
Solid one, and, like, especially because
so
like,
close.
when they announced it, they didn't say who the team was. It was like, is this a third-party thing? Because
Yeah.
you're,
There
like,
were
right
rumors,
there.
right? There were rumors that it was a third party team that were
There
doing it,
were,
but
yeah, and then they came out and said it was, an internal team that has a bunch of Metal Gear veterans on it and everything, so I guess it's like
yeah.
a new team made from old employees or
Yeah.
whatever, but
I've been wronger in my life, so that's fine. Let's keep this blank for now.
you were so close, you're so close on that one, man,
I could
and that
feel it.
would've tied you up. But Steve said that Valve will launch a subscription service. No word of it yet, but we'll see.
You never know. They're doing a lot
Uh,
of stuff.
I said GTA 6 will be officially revealed. Not officially. We've we've seen a lot of unofficial GTA
Mhm.
6, but no official reveal yet.
Could still
Again,
happen.
could still happen. We got a lot of year left. Rockstar does things to the beat of their own drum. I think one of the points that Steve made that makes me think this is definitely not going to happen, though, is that um, there's not a huge spike in Rockstar's projected earnings for next year, which makes me think if they were going to reveal GTA 6 properly, they would be
Yeah.
anticipating a jump in their
Yeah.
stocks and everything. So, I think I'm probably out on that one, but we shall see. Because it could always be an end of the year thing, and
Yeah.
then
Christmas present.
yeah, could happen. You for round 7 said that Elder Scrolls 6 will have its name revealed, so like the subtitle, like Oblivion or Skyrim,
Yeah.
Morrowind, whatever.
I'm less confident on this now that Summer Games Fest is gone and, you know, we've had all that stuff and it didn't
Yeah,
happen.
that's not
But
happening.
hey, I mean, maybe once Starfield's out, they wanna drum up a bit of extra hype for something else, do it like this, you know?
It could happen later this year. I could give you
Mhm.
that, but I feel like we will not hear about Elder Scrolls 6 until next year at the absolute earliest,
I
right?
think you're probably correct.
At that point, it's been in pre-production for a couple years. The bulk of the Starfield team will have moved over to it.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah.
their focused project. I could see them at that point being like, let's pull the curtain back and talk about it a little bit
Yeah.
more. But also, they hold their cards close to their chest. We didn't hear about Fallout 4 until the year it was coming out.
That's a
So
good point.
could happen. Could happen that way. Speaking of Fallout, Steve said a new Fallout game not developed by Bethesda will be announced. Not a chance in hell that that's happening if it
No,
didn't
I
happen at Summer Games Fest.
yeah.
Number 8, I said that Nintendo will not release a new 2D Mario game in 2023.
And now there's
Feeling
a
pretty confident
whole
about that.
new rumor about a new Mario game and a new SNES remake and
Yeah,
blah, 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 as there always bloody is. But yeah,
it
I
could
think that feels pretty good.
happen, but I'm feeling pretty confident it won't.
I like that this was in protest to a rumor that had come out around the same time that they would release a
Yeah,
game, and you were like, "Nah,"
yeah. I
which
basically was
I
like,
appreciate that.
I was like, I think this report is bullshit. I don't think this
Yeah.
is a thing.
I'm only ever gonna say this once to you. I respect you for that.
I appreciate it, Max.
So
And I'll only say that I appreciate you once. We gotta keep the heel energy up.
Yeah.
So then yours was that Spider-Man 2 will have a delay that will be announced or that it will not be released.
Yeah, we had a big argument about whether, you know, I do think that, the fall that we had before fall announcement, autumn announcement, October sort of comes under that still, so
Yeah, and we talked
I
about that where basically we agreed that if it was delayed to like November or later, and like
yeah, yeah,
depending
yeah.
on when in November, even right, like there's a debate there.
Yeah.
That would constitute. So if it came out in December, you'd have gotten your point. But I think that now that it's coming out in October, yeah, I think this one's
Still
probably
could
a lock.
happen.
Still could
Still could
happen.
happen, though,
Still could
so let's
happen.
hold off till it releases.
Yeah, but I think it's.
Why are you making this red? You're highlighting this
I was gonna make it
like
right. I'll hold off. I'll hold off on it. All right.
hold off till it releases.
Steve said a mobile game will be considered for Game of the Year at the Game Awards for the first time ever. I think this is the most
6 months
insane prediction
in
he's ever made.
yeah, 6 months in, nothing's really like maybe if Marvel Snap 1.0 comes out and they count it, and it makes a huge second splash because I feel like it's still technically in early access.
Sure.
It's not fully released on PC yet. It hasn't got the full PC UI. Maybe it like PUBG does makes a second splash and finds its feet. with the 1.0 release.
Even
But
so,
I don't know about it because even last year when it was still technically could be considered, didn't hit a lot of the right, didn't hit that high last year when it was sort of, like,
yeah.
just coming out. But again, it's probably on more people's minds now.
I think I think they're I don't think this will ever happen. And I
No.
think even if a game came out on mobile that was good enough to warrant being named game of the year, I don't think it would be nominated because there's a prejudice against mobile games in the
Yeah,
same way I don't ever think a fighting game or a racing game will ever seriously be nominated for
yeah.
game of the year. Um
Unless something like Silk Song gets, like a random mobile release alongside its,
yeah,
uh
and then it's like technically, right? It's like, oh,
yeah,
okay, this game came out on other platforms. It is also
yeah.
on mobile. It's that good. I could see that, but I think unless
This
it's
should be Steve's
something,
risky pick. This should have
yeah,
been
I know.
absolutely.
That's an insane one. And this is the thing, right? This is where I always end up because everyone's like, "Oh, Pete cheats." What? It's like I just make good predictions. I just don't say
Yes, yes,
insane
yes, you do.
things like this. No, I mean, say what you will, but track record speaks for itself. Number 9, I said Embracer Group will release a game that will be nominated for a game award. I don't think so.
Yeah, they've had a pretty rough week, right?
No,
Or
yeah, I don't think they have anything of note coming out this year at this
yeah,
point.
I don't think Embracer Group release a game would have been a fair guess there that you still might not have got a point for, but,
I was very much just like this. Surely this must be the year, right? They've acquired all these studios. Like, what are they doing? And
yeah,
now it's like,
shutting everything down,
no,
mate.
they canceled multiple games and they're gonna fire a bunch of people. And it's almost
I
like,
really hope we find out what was cancelled and who, like, or it's the specifics of this at some point, whether it's like a Did You Know Gaming thing or something like that. I
yeah,
just would like to know that.
I think that's gonna be probably where we end up. But yeah, if anything, unfortunately, I feel like we ended up finding the exact opposite, which is that every single thing I ever feared about the Embracer Group is just coming true, which is that they're just gobbling up IP and buying companies, and they have no uh, significant plan or vision
Yeah.
or anything. They're just burning money, and now they own
Yeah.
all these IP, and now they're
They
going to
have
lay a bunch of people
money,
off.
not talent or visionaries or anything like that. They just have a load of money
Nope.
and yeah.
And IP, and now they're going to
Yeah.
get rid of all the people that made those IP, so the
Yeah.
IP will become worthless.
Yeah.
It's really good.
They can make a load of Funko Pops, if they
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah, and it's like now they own Dark Horse, the comic publisher, and they own The Lord of the Rings, and it's like, great, cool. So we're just gonna probably just leverage these IP into the dirt, and you'll get a million more Gollum games until nobody wants to buy anything from any of those. It's great. It's really good. Really scary time.
I
So
love
yeah,
postmodernism.
yeah, it's great. Late stage capitalism, baby. Yeah, I'm not too confident on that one. I feel like maybe if I had said it'll get nominated for like a Razzie, I could have won one with that Gollum game, but I don't know. So for number 9, you said that Xbox will release a new first party controller with a feature that exists on the DualSense.
Nothing on that yet, but
Nothing yet. Could
still
happen.
possible, still
Yeah.
possible.
I don't think that's out of the question. I feel like I do feel like it probably won't happen considering they revealed new hardware at the Xbox event. I think if they
Yeah.
were going to have a new controller, I could see them being like later this fall alongside the new Xbox Series S. Here's, you know,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
here's
Wait,
the
are you
new
talking
controller.
about when you say new hardware, you mean like just like a version of the like a
Yeah,
color.
they revealed the new Series S, which is it's like a black Series S that's got a 1 terabyte hard drive instead of the standard, well, with 250 or whatever it
I
was.
was really asleep. Oh, yeah, there it is.
You were away.
I was asleep, man. I was really asleep for that. That looks slick
It's
AF.
very cool. Yeah, it's got a nice look to it. I think I so to me, I feel like if they were going to talk about new hardware, that probably would have been the time to do it.
Yeah, I
But
think you're correct on that. But let's not count me out just yet.
could happen. Could happen.
Could happen.
Steve said Sony will add support for cross progression to their PC games, enabling players to switch between PlayStation and PC. This is a thing I could see happening, but I just don't
I'm
think it's
still,
this
yeah.
year.
I don't. I think that of all the games to do it for, you do it for like Returnal or in time for Ratchet and Clank kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know about this one. Cool, could be cool.
Could be good.
Not
I
like
mean, it's functionality I would very much appreciate. I just don't think they're there yet.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Number 10, I said that Square Enix would be acquired. I am increasingly thinking this will probably not happen, not because I don't think Square Enix wants to be acquired or that there isn't a chance that they will be acquired moving forward, but I feel like with this current landscape of the market, like with everything going on with the Activision Blizzard acquisition and everything, it just feels like a bad time for a bigger company to try to acquire another bigger company. It
Yeah.
feels like you kind of want to wait for the dust to settle before you shake things up again.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on that one.
So then for your number 10, you said Nintendo will announce Pokemon Scarlet and Violet paid DLC. You were correct about that one. So you got another
Thank
point
you.
there. And then Steve said that Meta's Quest 3 headset will be announced and released in 2023. That one
Good
is
shout.
on track as well. Yeah, so Steve's got another point
I'm
there. And
very
then
interested in trying this thing out as well.
so that puts us at right now. The score is 1 for me for Bungie's new project under PlayStation. You've got 2 for Forspoken's Metacritic being below 80, and then the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, and then Steve has 2 for the Marathon prediction, and then the MetaQuest 3 release. And then moving into our risky picks right now, I got mine. So I have 2 points on the board, putting me in first place, which was that I said that Summer
Oh.
Game Fest will have higher viewing figures than E3. And I
E3 didn't
did
happen, so surely it's null and void.
no, because I we
Surely
literally said that in the conversation. And I
I'm
said,
pretty sure we said we were gonna get an adjudicator in to decide this after then. Me and Steve had a
I
conversation
don't
where
know
we
how you
agreed
can argue that in any way this isn't true. It
'cause
had
there's nothing
higher
to
viewer
compare it
figures than E3
nothing
because
to
E3 did
compare it
not
to.
happen. So it has a
Yeah,
viewing figure of
exactly.
0. Come on.
Nah, because it never happened. So
So that's how that
it
works. So if I predict that something is going to happen and then it doesn't happen, or I'm sorry, and then it happens, I don't get the points. That's what
no,
you're
because
saying?
no.
Yeah.
You're condensing that down too much. I think that there
Am I
needs to be
though?
a point of comparison because if E3 did happen this year, which I'm not saying, obviously it didn't happen, but
Right.
then you could compare the 2 because a lot of the stuff that was gonna be in E3 ended up being in Summer Games Fest
Right.
instead.
And you can still compare them because they didn't happen. So it's actually very easy to compare them because the one is 0 and then the other is more than 0, which if you were going to boil this down to a math problem, Max, right? I know Steve's more the math guy. If you want to pull your shoes off so you can start counting,
Let me get my
that's fine.
abacus. Let me get my
Yeah,
abacus.
go get the pro abacus and we'll figure it out. Does that sound good?
No, I still feel like it's null and void, but we can discuss this at the end of the year. We
You
can
can
argue this at the
feel
end of
that
the
all
year.
you want, but I
W
mean,
We
the
have
facts are
argued
what they
this.
are, buddy.
I will walk off this show. Let's move on to the next one.
If you want to walk off the
Let's
show
argue this at the
before
end of the year.
you want to walk off the show before you get a chance to establish your own legacy back. I think that would be a shame. But I mean, I get it. Some folks they just can't keep up with greatness. I understand being the second best player while Michael Jordan is on the court is it's tough. I understand it's hard to live that way,
Mhm.
but I'm
Mhm.
I thought you had it in you, but it feels like you're already crumbling under the pressure.
We'll see what happens at the end of the year when we argue this
So
with Steve involved.
your risky pick
Yes.
was that Metroid Prime 4 will be released this year.
Yes.
Think that one's probably not going to happen, unfortunately.
We don't there's no you don't know that.
You
You don't
don't.
know
You
that yet.
don't. I hope. Yeah, I would love for you to be right because there is rumblings that there's going to be a direct coming up. I don't necessarily
Mhm.
think that's going to happen, but if it does, and they tell us that this game's coming in the fall, that would be hype as all hell. I'd be happy
Dread
to lose to you on that one, Max.
Dread was announced in June and, was out by October, sort of end of October. That is
You're
it
not
could
wrong.
happen.
You're not
Crazier things
wrong.
have happened.
It could happen. It could happen. And then last one is Steve said that Phil Spencer will announce he plans to step down or a successor will be announced
This
as
felt imminent, didn't it? This felt imminent when the Redfall conversations were happening, like, this felt like it could
that was the
happen.
most likely I thought it was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, like could this happen? I don't think it will. I think that the Xbox showcase I think won back a lot of goodwill and I think the narrative around Xbox has kind of shifted back to being more neutral. And I think if Starfield comes out later this year and it delivers even slightly on the promise that it's teed up, I think all that conversation will kind of, you know, I don't think it'll feel that way anymore. I don't think it'll be like, oh yeah, like Phil's hanging on by a thread, right? But if the Activision Blizzard deal goes under, then I think the whole thing that drums it back up, right? Because that was a big gamble and it didn't pay off. And does leadership look at him and blame that on him? And then look at, okay, you failed in this way. Redfall was a big blunder, yada yada. Is that enough to shake the confidence that's been placed in him? Or does Starfield coming out and being a major success, even if those other two things, are against him, does that kind of set it to neutral again, right? And it's like, yeah, okay. You made some mistakes, but you also we bought Bethesda and that worked out, and we've released our most successful game on the platform. So, you're really gonna blame him for that. I don't think it's as cut and dry.
No, I think also there's still chance for things to happen. Like Phil Spencer stepping down during this huge acquisition is not if it completely crumbled, I could see maybe that happening, but again, that still take a little while after the fact. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we're going to jump back into the question block in just a second here, but let me remind you that this episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of June. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Waka Hula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. You are the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to go and show your support just like they did, get your name read on the air, get the show early, get a bunch of other perks and goodies. Guess what? Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find a link to our Patreon, our Discord, where you can keep the conversation rolling between episodes, our email address if you want to write into the question block. However, you choose to get involved or write into the show. We thank you for tuning in to another episode of Flip Screen Games Podcast. All right, so this first question comes from the Tyler Olson, who wrote in over on YouTube and said, "Any chance Spider-Man 2 beats out Tears of the Kingdom for Game of the Year?"
ha 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 ha
Not a
ha
chance.
ha ha
Yeah,
no.
and I say that believing full well that Spider-Man 2 will be a fantastic game, that
Mhm.
it'll be better than the 2 previous games in the series, and it'll probably be a 9 out of 10 or higher, and it will still not beat Tears of the Kingdom because Tears of
Yeah.
the Kingdom is a revolutionary game, and I think even if Spider-Man 2 is fantastic, it has baggage being associated with a big IP and being a type of game where it's like, yeah, we've done this before and it's better and it's
Yeah.
more and it's this and it's that. It's not going to have the level of innovation that Tears of the Kingdom had, and that will be
Yeah.
held against it. On a softer
S
year, it could be Game of the Year, but
Mhm.
against Starfield, I don't see it.
Spider-Man 2, the Spider-Man games, the in the where they currently are, could be the best that they could possibly be, right? They could be the best of that kind of game they could be. They're always gonna be open world checklisty games. 'Cause as soon as you sort of do take all the stories and the set piecey stuff out of it, you are still sort of like, "Okay, I'm swinging around, I'm punching things up, I'm ticking off boxes, I've done this." Not to say that it isn't a great game, I enjoyed Spider-Man, but I was very aware of the fact that, like, I can't believe people were trying to create some sort of rivalry between this and God of War for Game of the Year. Like there was any way in hell that God of War and Spider Man were like God of War is like leagues above Spider Man in everything that it does, and I really enjoyed Spider Man. So yeah, I just think that there's just no chance. It can be a great game. I just don't think it's ever going to be able to be anywhere close to Tis the Kingdom. You know.
No, no. Again, I think if it came out in a year where there were less like genre defining video games out, I
Hmm.
think it absolutely could win Game of the Year. And I'm sure people will give it Game of the Year. But if you're talking about like at the Game Awards, you're talking about like what do people generally agree is the Game of the Year? Uh, it would have to have, I think, a really truly exceptional story. I think that is the only way that it hits that bar. Is it would have to have a narrative that rivals what you come to expect from a God of War, from a Last of Us, and it would really have to hit. And that is very much possible, but again, you're talking about a story that would have to be so exceptional that it knocks out 2 games that are potentially, well, at least one of them, right? Tears of the Kingdom, we know, is a genre-defining game, and Starfield is teed up to be a genre-defining game, hopefully a
Hmm.
generation-defining game. We'll see. But I think Spider-Man 2 will unfortunately be a most people's second or third place game, and that's gonna be where it lands. It's
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
be like
expecting it.
Horizon was in 2017, where it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a great game, but like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey came out, it's not number 1,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I even think if Spider-Man released last year, it had too much competition. If Spider-Man releases next year, I assume it's gonna have too much competition. Like, I just don't think there is a
Maybe.
world where that can be the best game that releases that year, but just because it is something that we know exactly what it's gonna be. It can't surprise us. It can't truly, like you say, define a genre, right? Because we know what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And again, right, like, I think it being attached to an established IP also hurts it. It
Yeah.
helps it in, like, a sales perspective and people having interest in it, but I think, um I think people are always gonna want to give game of the year to an IP that's originally a gaming brand. I also feel that's true. So,
can see that.
I think it has a lot of little things going against it that even if it's an extremely high 9, right? It has a real uphill battle. So
I agree.
this next one comes from our own Steve, who wrote in and said, while online only has its place, should games also offer an offline experience if there is a single player way to play? I'm on holiday with patchy internet and can't play Diablo 4 despite playing 90% of it on my own so far. Yes, I very
Yes.
much agree with that. I think any game that has single player should not require online only. I
Yeah.
think if a game is, I mean, granted, I think literally the only type of game that should require online only is games that are multiplayer only.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I think you should have to connect up. You should have to manually go, "Yeah, cool, I'm gonna play online now," and then connect up. Like playing Monster Hunter, for example. Well, at the start of the game, you log in, or you can then go in and say, "I'm gonna turn online on now," and then people can join your game, or you can join other people's game, or you can call out for quests and stuff. But like the game starts in single player, and that I think is the way it should be. Even though I feel like Monster Hunter is very much a you just jump in with randomers and you just play the game.
Yeah.
Similar to how Diablo works in a lot of ways. I think so.
Like, I think if you're gonna give people the option to play alone, then commit to giving them the option to play alone.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when you consider the fact that this is a game that has, like, a linear story. Like, what if you live
Hmm.
somewhere with bad internet? What if you don't play
Yeah.
games online at all, right? Because you can't,
Yeah.
you know? Those folks exist, and it feels weird that they can't engage with the main part of the game, right? Like if
Hmm.
you listen to I listened to an interview a couple weeks ago with the game's director whose name is escaping me right now, and he was talking about how part of the way that they built the game was with the kind of mindset of some people are going to play this game and roll credits on it, and that's going to be all that they do, and some people are going to beat the game, and then they're going to feel like that's when the game actually starts, is post game.
Yeah.
If you're one of those first people, like, and you're never gonna play post game, like, why does it need to be online? That seems so
Yeah.
restrictive to a type of person that you claim that you're trying to court, right? So, just
Yeah.
feels like at odds with what the goal of the work is,
I
which is
agree.
where it gets weird for me. All right, so we're gonna jump into the patented 3-question formula from one Asobi who wrote in and said over on Discord, who wrote in and said, how important do you think video games are when dealing with mental health and treating mental health issues? Do you have any stories where a game helped you through a tough time or helped you deal with something? And then before we answer that, I want to pull in another question. This one came from Stevie Yaki, who wrote in a couple weeks ago, and we've been sitting on this one for a week like this, where we could kind of dig in on some listener questions. And he wrote in with something similar and said, "Not sure if this has been asked, but Pete mentioned a game being his Zen game on a recent podcast. I use some games as a cognitive behavioral therapy tool to deal with anxiety and depression. I find they can be a distraction in a good way, and the ease of being able to pick up the deck and play these games has always been a big benefit. The best games for this are the ones that I'm still thinking about when at work. I'll be thinking of something I want to achieve in the game that evening. My go-to is Elite Dangerous due to the grind and reward system. I wonder if anyone else used games like this and what games you've used and why." I thought these were really, really good, thought-provoking questions. I always appreciate when y'all write in with some of the kind of like big picture stuff like this because I think they're exciting to dig in on, and like the thumbnail driven main topic thing doesn't always give you an opportunity to dig in on some of these more
Yeah,
niche
of
questions.
course.
So very much appreciate both of you writing in with this topic. Um, this is definitely something that I can relate to, but why don't you start, Max? Is this something that you've found to be true in your life, whether it's like a game you find yourself going back to like cope with some of those negative feelings, or maybe like more on Asobi's side of the question of like maybe a game that really struck a chord with you at a time in your life where, you felt like you needed a good piece of art.
So I can think of a specific. So in 2021, I went through sort of a pretty big breakup of, we didn't sort of see through COVID, and we've been together sort of 4 years at this point. And at the same time, a good friend of mine who I play like out, hundreds and hundreds of hours of Monster Hunter with, also came out of a sort of 4-year relationship. And because it was 2021, he was sort of living quite far away, and we were still sort of in like patches of isolation and stuff like that. It was very beginning of 2021. We decided to. I bought him a copy of Valheim because he was also out of work at the time, and I would finish work every day and look forward to sitting down at this desk here. Even this is where I was sat all day because I was working from home, whatever, and just playing 6 or 7 hours of Valheim with him. And we would sort of have our house, and we would go out and we would sort of, you know, live our second life basically, where we could forget about all of that sort of shit and just play Valheim all day, every day, and that we did a lot of that, and it really was like a good time for us together. And then Monster Hunter Rise came out, so we then were able to continue that through with that. Um, we're both, back on our feet in great ways now, and like, we still look back on Valheim fondly, and I think we have tried to go back to it, but also like it was a game of that
Of
specific
that
time for us.
time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So I don't think
I
it's something
get
we're
you.
ever going to be able to really get back into in a major way. I don't think that I specifically have games that I would like go back to, or the games that I always sort of lean on in difficult times. But I do think that games are a great way to learn about things like this. Like when I first played Celeste, and sort of, it's a tool to learn about. I forget the name of the character from Celeste.
Isn't it
Maddie,
Madeline?
Madeline, yeah.
Yeah,
So
Maddie.
Madeline, yeah, about Madeline's, her anxiety, her depression, and how she's dealing with it, and like how, that breathing, the moment in the game where you're sort of breathing along with the feather, and I was like, "This is really nice. I sort of understand
Yeah.
some of this now," you know? Um, I do think the games are a great tool to do that because you can be more immersed, what was the, Senua's, Hellblade?
Hellblade, Senua Saga.
That is a game, yeah, that is a game that they intended on using as or intended on showing, uh, the symptoms of psychosis and things like that. And I think that's an interesting game to experience that in a unique way that you probably couldn't do through movies or through books or whatever, because it is,
Yeah.
as you're trying to do one thing, there's other forces trying to coax you out of it or tell you not to, or just sort of like a literal voice in your head telling you you're doing something wrong when you're trying to achieve a goal. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I like that, I like you bringing that up because I think one of the things I always really appreciate about games, I guess this is like kind of tangential to this question, but I think they're really, really powerful tools for extending empathy. I think
Mhm,
so many of the problems we have in modern society, right? Like I think really boil down to bigotry, right? And
mhm,
so much the enemy of bigotry is knowledge, right? Is
mhm,
exposure. And I think there are a lot of folks who grow up in, whether it's your countries like this, whether it's in my part of the world, right? Whether it's the state you come from or whatever, where you live in these communities that are, you know, um, not diverse, and you grow up around a lot of people who have the same, religious background or the same race or this, or like you live in this place that pushes a very kind of old fashioned heteronormative society, right? And like you aren't exposed to folks who are different from you. And it makes it very easy for the powers that be to other people that are different
yeah.
than you and make you feel like you're not like them and you're better than them or they're bad or whatever.
They're the enemy,
And
yeah.
yeah, and then it becomes this bullshit us versus them thing when any bigot in the world has a lot more in common with the people they hate than the people that are up top pushing us all down, right?
Mhm,
The people they're conditioned and taught to hate because hate is taught, hate is not natural. And I think of a lot of games that have done well for me. I think in that regard, not that I was like a bigoted or hateful person, but somebody who, as somebody who wants to see the humanity in everyone and find the things that we have in common, right? Like there are so many life experiences, lived experiences I'll never have, right? And getting to play a video game where you occupy a character and you're supposed to feel that sense of I am this person and I am acting as them in these scenarios, you can be put in situations that I as a, like a cisgendered white man, right? I will cannot experience, right? I can never experience what it's like to be the target of like sexism or racism or any of those things that uh I've played games or I play characters who do experience those things,
Mhm.
right? And it's not like the one that always comes to mind for me is Life is Strange 2,
I knew you were
right?
gonna say that. That's exactly what I was thinking of just then when you were talking about that.
And you know this scene, right? Like no major spoilers. Everyone should go play this game. It's a great game. But in the game, right, you play a 16-year-old boy who I believe the family's Mexican, but there's Hispanic Americans, and the entire inciting incident of the game is rooted in race politics and racism, right? And there's a scene in like the third or fourth episode where the character that you play is being victimized by racists, right? And you have to decide how are you gonna navigate the situation, right? Where like, are you gonna potentially put yourself in a situation where you're gonna get attacked or hurt or killed, or are you gonna, um, just take that abuse and deal with it because it's the safer option, right? And it's like that is not a personal experience that I could ever have, right? And yeah, I mean, playing that game didn't give me a lifetime of experience and a
Yeah.
true understanding, but it gives you that second of like, I've never had to deal with this. I've never had to make this
Yeah.
decision before. I've never had to put myself in these shoes, right? Even though I know intellectually that this happens and I
Mhm.
wish it didn't happen and like all those things, right? It makes you think differently to actually put yourself in that moment for a second and extend that empathy to somebody who has a different life experience than you, right? And that I think is one of the most like amazing, powerful tools that video games have, right? Is
Yeah.
because of the fact that you play the character that you play as, like you have a closer connection to them than you do a protagonist in a film or a book or something like that, right? You feel that sense of like this is happening to me,
Yeah.
and that is so powerful, And I
It's
think
it's the
go
power
go
of
ahead.
art. Sorry, I was gonna say that's the sort of the power of what art is capable of, and I think films do it really well of, I've seen some movies where I'm just like, "Oh, damn," like, I've never been able to experience this, but I sort of get like a sliver, of how it might be for someone to
That slice
experience
of
it.
somebody else's
Exact
life.
Yeah, 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 but to have that in an interactive mode where you're making the decisions and you're like, "Oh, now my choice here matters because it not only does it affect sort of the game, but it also affects how these characters are going to react." And that's something you have to navigate in real life too. Is okay, I can make a decision here, but am I going to make things worse by reacting the way they want me to react, or should I just take it? Or these are decisions that people have to make every day. That like you say, people like us haven't had to. And I think that video games are a good way of sort of putting that in a way that you can do it in different ways every time. You can navigate that in different ways and see the different outcomes. And that the people that have already well, you hope the people that have made this experience and created the paths for this have experienced these different ways. So you can sort of feel pretty confident in that whatever you're doing here is a uh genuine possibility, not just like some guy's fantasy of like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think I really that's something that I have been really excited to see grow as like the indie space has become more prevalent and like
Hmm.
there are just more avenues for different types of stories to get told, and like I think I you can even extend that to like things beyond like identity, right? Of things like I think of like the game like That Dragon Cancer, right? Like I've never had cancer. I hope I never get cancer, but it helped me get a sense of like what that might be like, right? And like and the struggle um that comes with facing your own mortality
Hmm.
and all these things that like I've been privileged enough to not experience, and like who knows, maybe I will one day, but you hope you don't, but you hope that those pieces of art give you enough of that other person's experience that when you're presented with an opportunity in real life to extend empathy to somebody else and to recognize their humanity, to be kinder,
Hmm.
to be an ally, right? Where you have opportunity, that you take that opportunity because you've been changed by the art and it's made you think differently, right?
Yeah.
Like that's to me like that's what all great art should strive to do, right? Is to make
Yeah.
you feel different. about the world that you live in afterwards. So in terms of Asobi's question of like any games that helped me through a tough time, I mean definitely like a lot. I think the on my arm, right, like the tattoos I've got here are connected to games like that. I've got a Majora's Mask one, and I've got the happy or the oh my god, what is it? The Mask Salesman.
Happy Mask
Forget.
Salesman, I
Yeah, it
think
is
his
Happy
name is,
Mask
isn't it?
Salesman, I'm right. And the line he says, "Believe in your strengths," right? And it's like I got this tattoo, because I was at a crossroads in my life where I was, like, finishing school, and I was trying to figure out where I was gonna go from here and what my life was gonna look like, and I happened to have been playing Majora's Mask around that time, and, those were just words that stuck with me, and it was something that, like, left that impression of, like, yeah, like, just bet on yourself, like, believe in yourself, and, like, that game gave me a mantra when I needed one, right? When I was feeling insecure. I have a Life is Strange tattoo, similar thing, right? It was only a couple years later, and, it was, again, like, that feeling of being lost and not really knowing, where I was trying to steer my life and having this, like, coming of age story that is ultimately about, how like the power of friendship and of like having those like close connections with people and building camaraderie and leaning on the people that are there for you are things that can help you get through those tough times and find yourself on the other side and hopefully you're in a bit of a better position, right? Like that was definitely something that at the time it was what I needed, and it was
Mhm.
something that helped that difficult time feel a little bit less difficult.
Yeah.
And, the last one I wanna shout out is, I think, probably the earliest example of this for me is Super Mario World, which is, like this is a kind of a sad story, but it's one that, like, um, I have a lot of really warm, memories of that game because there were a lot of times where, like, when my parents were going through a divorce and stuff like that was when I was playing that game for the first time, and I remember there being times where, like, they would be fighting and I would be feeling anxious about it, and I would go and put headphones on and play Super Mario World, right? And it was, like, a warm, safe place to go to, and
Yeah.
that it wasn't about the narrative or any of that stuff. It was, like, kinda what Stevie is saying of the like, more cognitive behavioral thing of like,
Yeah.
hey, like this is a tough time and like escapism is I think sometimes treated like a dirty word, but it's not, like when you're dealing with trauma, when you're dealing with a really tough time in your life, like you talked about, right? Like having that escape of this like positive low stakes thing that is just about fun and in your case, right, like hanging out and enjoying time with your friend. um that is a really powerful tool, to
Mhm.
help you like remove yourself from what you're struggling with,
Yeah, because
and
there was no other option at the time as well, that was
yeah,
it was a second life for us because we were able to it was like we were together, I'd still, like I would still call him over and be like, "Hey, man, come see what I'm doing over here," and he would, like,
yeah.
hot over and be like, "Oh, that's cool that you've built that, like, oh, let's try this," and, like, there was that feeling of us being in the same room.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like that's huge. Like I definitely
Mhm.
use games in that way, like to this day, right? Where like I have ADHD and like I struggle sometimes with anxiety related to that, right? And like executive dysfunction and things like that. And I think that's why I like the open world checky box games because there are times where like I am struggling to organize my own life or achieve goals or whatever, and there is that sense of like being able to hop in and like check a box like feels good and it feels relieving in a way that is not always easy for me to find in my regular life. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's like having that ability to like remove yourself from the anxiety of the moment and focus intimately on something else and have that positive feedback loop of like you've achieved something, you've done something, right? Like that can sometimes be what I need to get back on track, right? Is like let me go knock out a tower or like let me go check a box in Tears of the Kingdom, right? Let me go
Yeah.
beat a shrine, and then you get that positive mental momentum and you can kind of all right, now let me go do the dishes, let me go run some
Yeah.
errands, whatever. So yeah, I definitely relate to that, to what both of you had to say there. Thanks for writing in. All right, jumping back into Asobi's questions. Number two, who is your favorite developer right now and what kind of game would you like to see them do at some point, preferably something they haven't done already?
I wanna give a quick shout out to Capcom at the moment, who I think are smashing it. Have done for the last, like, 5 years, they've
They've
just
been
built
they've been on
6
a
years.
fucking tear the last couple
They're
like, ever
just
since Monster Hunter World, I feel like they've been on all
Resident Evil 7,
rides.
man. Resident Evil 7. It was Resident
Shit,
Evil
yeah, you're
7,
right.
and then from
Yeah.
there, it's just been bing, 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 win, 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 and I I did have it in my head what I wanted them to do. I want them to I know you said preferably something they haven't already done, but it's something they haven't done in 20 years. I
Good
would like
enough.
them to do another 2D Zelda. I'd like them to come back with the same energy they made Minish Cap with and make another 2D Zelda,
Dude,
original 2D
you just
Zelda.
gave me goosebumps. I was like, "Yes, that would be awesome, please."
Do another original 2D Zelda game, uh, with put it in the RE engine, make it look fantastic, like, they're hitting they're firing on all cylinders at the moment. That would be great. I think that'd be wicked. Short and
They
sweet, in and out.
I would love for them to do a remaster of Oracle of Ages and Seasons, and maybe I don't know if you've ever
Sure.
heard about this. There's that rumor that I believe is confirmed that there was supposed to be a third version of it. They should
I've
do
heard
that.
this.
That should be the
Yeah.
like bring it back. Those games are great. I would love to have them kind of reimagined in that like Link's Awakening style. Not necessarily the same art style, but just like let's bring this classic game back, give it a fresh coat
Yeah,
of
yeah,
paint. And yeah, do some new stuff. Do some of the stuff that you weren't able to do that first time around. That would be
yeah.
awesome.
You've got, the power of the Switch, the power of the RE engine. You've got so many great ideas. You've got, like, some of the best you're currently firing on the bet all you're saying you've got all the best teams. Whoever's doing their Resident Evil games at the moment, fantastic. Whoever's working on Monster Hunter at the moment, the best it's ever been. Like, all of these games that you're currently peaking at, keep doing it, man, and just, like, yeah, bring that energy to something that is a surefire hit like a 2D Zelda.
This is like kind of a pivot, but I'm pulling on the same. It's kind of insane to me that Capcom has gotten everything else like totally perfectly back on track, and they just cannot seem to get a new Mega Man game made that's good.
Yeah. I think that's because, I can't remember the guy's name, but when he left to do Mighty Number 9, I think he was the driving force
Yeah,
behind a lot of the
KG
designs there.
Inafune.
Inafune, that's it.
Yeah,
And I think leaving there and making that game, because I don't think Mega Man 11 was that great. No, 12. 12? 11. Yeah, yeah, sorry, yeah, 11. Because I thought
it's
9
11. 11's the one that was like the 3D chibi one,
really,
right? The
yeah.
most recent
Yeah,
one that was on
yeah.
Switch.
Because 9 was great, 10 was great,
Yeah.
and then 11, I played it and I was like, "Okay, like, it's not as tight. It's you've not taken it back to the originals, you've made something new here." And I feel like they could, they could have done something stronger, and I wonder if that is because they don't have the same talent.
And I think it's just time to build a new team. Like, I think they need to get a team like with the same kind of energy as like the Sonic Mania project, right? Where like find
Mhm.
folks that are out there making really cool Mega Man style
Yeah,
games or that are making, fan games or whatever, and like bring in some new blood
yeah.
because Mega Man is like I love Mega Man and like I'm like a more recent convert.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people our age are more into Mega Man X. I definitely
Never
vibe
played
more.
X, always the originals, yeah.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are my games. 2 is the only one I've ever beaten to completion, but, like, I love it. It's one of my
I've
favorite platformers.
I've beaten 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 9 and 10.
You know what? I've never played the X games, but I did play the Zero game, the ZX
Haven't
games,
played
which are
those
more
either.
in the style of X, and I played
Yeah, haven't played those
just
either.
3 of them. I think I beat 1 and 2. But
Only play the originals.
I played those were one of the first games I beat on an emulator. I was like, "Oh, these are fun.
Yeah,
Cool."
yeah, I think Mega Man 9 is what got me into retro games on the Wii because I was like,
Nice.
"Oh, cool, there's a whole world out here," and yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that was such a cool idea of like, what if we like pull back the NES style but do something new and
I feel like they
I
were one of the first to do it as well.
they were, yeah,
Yeah.
and that was like one of the early like, oh, this is a download only title, but it's like a big
Mhm.
deal. Like
Yeah, yeah,
that was
yeah.
a moment for sure. I would love to see them recapture that for sure because Mega Man is just like it's such a good franchise and it's insane that it's become so irrelevant. Especially when there's all this like retro nostalgia right now.
Mhm.
Max, I'm struggling to answer this question. Like who my one favorite developer is, because like the
Would you like
question
me to
is
help you out? And I
right
can and
now.
I've got your okay, I've got a good answer for you
Okay.
that is based on the previous answer we just gave, that you
Okay.
just gave.
Okay.
And it is that Yacht Club Games makes a new Mega Man game.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Take that one right to the bank, brother. You kidding me? Yeah, that's awesome.
This is just like Mad Libs, but like they're not silly, they're great.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I mean, like, I don't know. There's so many developers I think of as one of my favorites. I think
Mhm.
historically, BioWare has been my answer, but like
Yeah.
they have not made a good game in a generation. So I think that's honestly the easiest one for me is like it's not sexy. It's not something they haven't done before. I'd like to see them make a good Dragon Age and a good Mass Effect and be back on track. That's what I would like to see. Really, truly more than anything.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think that would be like the fact that they're doing another Dragon's Dogma.
Dragon
If they
Age.
did drag no, sorry, yeah, sorry, I'm thinking of Capcom again.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. I just
No,
wanted
my
to.
bad. I've gone straight back to Capcom there immediately in my head.
That game does look good for what it's worth.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Capcom on the brain, sorry, man.
You were gonna say.
I was gonna say the fact that sorry, no, it's irrelevant now that I've realised we don't talk about Capcom anymore.
Okay.
Or remembered. Yeah, I was gonna say that now that they're gonna do Dragon's Dogma, that all they're missing is Mega Man, but I've just gone in but I've immediately just had Mega Man in my head the whole time, sorry.
Oh, you're good. All right. So we'll close it out with number 3 here. What are some things that you do while gaming that you'd consider being weird? I have 2 examples for that. One for me and one from a friend. When not playing a very story heavy game, I usually watch YouTube on the side and pretty much ignore the dialogue. A friend of mine always snacks while gaming to the point where his controller is sometimes covered in whatever powder or on his chips/crisps. In his defense, he has a controller that's specifically just for guests. I think that's very funny that he's got his like Cheeto encrusted main controller. That here's the nice one for guests.
Pristine guest
I
controller.
love that. That's very funny.
I don't think there's anything I do at all that's considered weird personally.
I don't think
I'm a
either of those are that
big
weird, to be
normie,
honest with
big
you.
normie myself. No, I agree. Well, I think yeah, I think a lot of people who I do know some people who listen to a podcast while they're playing games
Yeah,
or have YouTube on in the background. Like we talk all the time about having a TV
good
game
TV game.
or a game TV. You know, we do these kind of things. I don't think they're weird at all. I think maybe ignoring most of the dialogue. Oh, it says well, we're not playing a very heavy story heavy game. All right, I'm fine with that. I generally skim and skip anyway. The eating thing is not weird, but it is like come on, man, like, get your life in order.
Just like just have a
Just get some
washcloth with you,
chopsticks.
bro. Like you
Yeah,
just wipe
get
them
some
off between.
chopsticks,
Yeah,
put
what are you
gloves
doing?
on, tip 'em into your mouth, find another way to do it, man, like, wash your hands. I don't think there's anything that weird that I do while I'm looking around my room now to think of anything that I might do sitting there. Maybe not. Maybe it's some maybe stretching. Oh, genuinely, maybe I'll just while playing a game, I'll just, like, stretch my feet out, or I'll just, like
Sure.
as in, like, stretch and stop, and stretch and stop, or I'll, like, stretch my arms out or whatever, like, I don't know. I can't think of anything particularly weird, but,
Yeah, that's the
yeah.
thing is I can't think of anything I do that like I mean I think probably the weirdest thing that maybe is like I've played Marvel Snap in the shower. Like that's kind of weird to be in the shower while I'm
Man.
playing a game, but it's
Yeah,
like
that's too far, I think, for me.
that's too
Like,
much. That's a bridge too far.
I don't even wear my, like, 1 meter depth watch and my or how many meters depth, like, or my water resistant Fitbit. Everything comes off. Think of
I
me completely naked, and
I have a
that's
little
what I'm like.
shelf in my shower for my phone so that if I'm want to watch something or listen to music or whatever while I'm in there, I can do that.
Man, just take, like, a 10-minute break, man. Just, like, have 10 minutes to yourself to
No,
clean
no, no, no.
yourself and
Can't do
collect your
that.
thoughts. You've got how many where do you find time to finish the arguments you've had in your head all day? Where do you have time to win fights that you've been
I
having?
finished them in real time, motherfucker.
Oh,
I'm winning
man.
this. I'm winning these predictions, Max.
I'm looking forward to a shower later so I can just absolutely roast you.
I love the idea that like later on, like it's gonna be like you go to the gym, I got like an hour and a half from now, you just start sending me responses to this
Yeah.
conversation.
This is what I should have said. In fact, speaking of the gym, I should probably close this soon, so I should probably
Yeah,
head
yeah,
down.
we'll wrap it up here for the day. But yeah, you know what, Asobi, I don't think you or your friend are weird. Just tell your buddy to wipe his hands down. That's the one thing we got for him. But otherwise,
Yeah,
you two are good. You're all good. There's no wrong way to game, right?
I agree.
Just keep playing.
Apart from in the phone on you in the shower.
That's a bridge too far. That's a bridge too far. We learn where the line is. That's good. I'm glad we could find it.
I'm glad we've done it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there for the day. Thank you guys for joining us here for another episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. Remember, if you want to write in just like everyone did for our next question block centric episode, you could hit us up in a bunch of ways, and you can find links to all of them over at flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to our Patreon, our Discord, our YouTube channel, our email address, all of which are ways that you can write in and get in touch with your thoughts on this episode or any other episode of the show. And if you want to write in with your own thought provoking question that may end up as a main topic or what have you, make sure you hit us up because, like I said, I love to hear from you guys and I love to hear these kinds of questions because they're very thought provoking. I think it takes us to some places we might not get on a normal episode of the show. So please write in with those. And remember, if you do write in and we don't get to your question, it's usually because some news came up and we're sitting on it. So we'll save it for like a nice grab bag episode like today when there's no news and all we can do is answer all of your wonderful, brilliant little questions.
Brilliant.
So remember, flipscreen.games, that's a website. However you choose to get involved and show your support, we thank you for tuning in to another episode of Flipscreen Games Podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Max. We'll see you next week.